Welcome to Khanversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, and today I'm going to talk to you about what is happening with Indian foreign policy. There's a clear turn, a pivot towards China and towards Russia. Is India trying to revive the old uh, proposed idea of a potential non Western alliance of RIC, that is Russia, India, and China? Or India is planning to essentially work with China to also strengthen BRICS eventually, because India is going to be the chairman of the BRICS grouping next year, and the next BRICS summit is going to be hosted in India. And now Prime Minister Modi has announced that he is going to be attending the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's summit. He will be attending, where after 7 years, Prime Minister Modi will be visiting China, and he will get to meet the President of China, Xi Jinping. Russia is also a founding member of SCO, in fact, one of the two driving forces behind SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And so we don't know yet, but it is possible that even Putin will be there. So we might get to see a photo op of RIC, Russia, India, China, Putin, Modi, and Xi Jinping. So these are the developments. Today, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met Prime Minister Modi. Initially, there was no indication that he was going to meet. According to his schedule, he was meeting Dr. Jaishankar on Monday, and he was going to meet Ajit Doval on Tuesday. But apparently, Modi took time off to meet with him, just as Xi Jinping had met with Jaishankar when he was visiting last month for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's foreign ministers meeting. The tweet that Prime Minister Modi sent out after meeting Wang Yi is nearly verbatim the same as what Dr. Jaishankar said after his meeting at the SCO, especially after his meeting with Wang Yi and when he met with the Vice President of China. Uh, so I'm going to read out the tweet. I'm new to this platform, so I'm still learning how to do this live streaming. And those of you who saw me do the first one this afternoon, you must have noticed that I have learned how to use the intro. So hopefully I would have been able to show this. But anyway, I'm going to read out to you what Prime Minister Modi said. He said, glad to meet Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Since my meeting with President Xi in Kazan last year, which was in October, India-China relations have made steady progress guided by respect for each other's interests and sensitivities. This is an interesting word. It was used quite a bit by Jaishankar also in his opening remarks to Wang Yi. Mutual sensitivity, mutual interest, and mutual respect is what Dr. Jaishankar was talking about. He says, we have made steady progress guided by respect for each other's interests and sensitivities. I look forward to our next meeting in Tianjin on the sidelines of the SCO Summit. Stable, predictable, constructive ties between India and China will contribute significantly to regional as well as global peace and prosperity. So I want to draw your attention to this particular statement that the Indian ministers, foreign ministry, Indian foreign minister, and Dr. Jaishankar, and now Modi is making, that since my meeting with President Xi, since the meeting of Modi and Xi Jinping in Kazan, that was in October 2024, there has been apparently a steady improvement of India-China relations. Now, as you all know, and as I have pointed it out before, that's not true. The Indian foreign ministry is suddenly suffering from amnesia. China, in May, during Operation Sindoor, when India attacked Pakistan's terrorist camps in Pakistan, and then subsequently there was a 4-day military engagement between India and Pakistan. China stood firmly with Pakistan. China provided real-time assistance to Pakistan. Most of the weapons that Pakistan was using against India were made in China, supplied in China. In fact, because there was a gap between the terrorist attack in Pahalgam and India's retaliation or India's attack on Pakistan, even though India was threatening military action, uh, we know that weapons were transferred from China to Pakistan just before Operation Sindoor started. But not only that, after Operation Sindoor, China has supported Pakistan diplomatically at the UN Security Council, at the IMF, at the World Bank, and at FATF. So in many ways, China has been standing very firmly with Pakistan. Uh, just this is June, July, August, just 3 months ago. So how can both Dr. Jaishankar and Prime Minister Modi say the Chinese don't say that? The Chinese don't say that our relations have been steadily improving, or to that extent. The kind of statement Wang Yi made was that it is in the interest of both these countries to be allies rather than competitors, to work together rather than work against each other. And so China is talking about looking forward, going forward, and having good relations with India. But India is trying to project it backwards to say that things have been improving because I guess once again, Prime Minister Modi, just as he denied any role of the United States in the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, he wants to, I guess, deny any role to the US in this India's change in foreign policy, India's pivot to China. Apparently the relationship has been getting better. Clearly, India did make an effort. There's no doubt about it. The meeting in Kazan would not have happened if India didn't want to meet, if Modi didn't want to meet Xi Jinping. And prior to that, prior to October 2024, if you remember, a lot of us did shows on the topic as to how suddenly India was okay with what China had done on the border. And so at first, India was saying there was no normalization on the border, and saying that we will not have normal relations with China unless there's normalization in border, basically saying we need to go back to pre-Galwan attack that was in 2020. So unless we went back to the pre-Galwan attack status, there would be no moving forward. But then India changed its position to enable Modi to meet with Xi Jinping in Kazan, and suddenly everything was okay on the border, even though, I mean, the troops are there, nearly 50,000 Chinese and 50,000 Indian troops at least, and they continue to build. So they are moving forward, and we will see how things go. But the de-escalation has not yet happened. In fact, the meeting between Ajit Dole and Wang Yi was about the military infrastructure that both sides are building on the border near Galwan, and about de-escalating the troops. That is, you take away some of the troops from the border. We will see what that happens. So it is in this context that there suddenly seems to be an interest, and the question is being raised whether India is pivoting towards Russia and China and away from the West, or what is it that is going on. So it is in this context. I mean, I will leave it to Dr. Jaishankar to articulate whether there is any fundamental shifts in Indian foreign policy. Unfortunately, these days, he's become like a broken record. He says the same thing again and again and again and again, even though there is no correspondence with reality that, oh, we live in a multipolar world, and India is one of those poles, and we want to maintain our strategic autonomy, and so on and so forth. Well, you could have maintained your strategic autonomy last year too, and had good relations with Russia and China, but you tried to undermine both SCO and BRICS. India has been a kind of a negative influence inside BRICS and SCO for the past 2-3 years. And then suddenly now it wants to strengthen the core of BRICS, which is RIC, Russia, India, China. So anyway, so there are 5 strategic questions that I think this India's pivot towards China raises. Number 1, why is RIC so important? Why is Russia, India, China an important pivot? I actually did a show some time back, about a month ago. Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, in March of 2025, suggested that it was time for Russia, India, and China to once again meet in a trilateral dialogue and revive the mechanism of RIC. That was an important point point that Sergei Lavrov made. And then subsequently, there was all this talk about reviving in India-Russia summits. So there has been no India-Russia summit, I think, since 2020 for the last 5 years. Obviously, India has been steadily moving towards the West, away from Russia, away from China. About 6-7 years ago, India procured 70% of its weapons from Russia. Now India has cut that in half to 35%. Now France and Israel and the United States contribute the rest of India's weapons acquisition. So India has been moving towards the West significantly in the past 4-5 years, partly driven by Galwan, partly to get Western alliances and partnerships, especially through Quad. India was getting very close to the United States. Every other month, we would see Blinken and Dr. Jaishankar meeting, or Ajit Doval coming and meeting the National Security Advisor here, and then they would come out with all these alphabets with CTE, ICE, this, that, Quad, and so there was all this constant talking of various collaborations between the U.S. and India. And there was no similar announcements of any kind of collaborations with Russia or China or anything else, or even with Brazil or South Africa. So you can't see any parallel instances of so much of collaboration that India and the US were showing until very recently. So the question now is that why is India taking the initiative to revive RIC? Today, Prime Minister Modi met with Wang Yi, and today, Jaishankar is in Moscow to revive the India-Russia summit. So it's an interesting day, diplomatically speaking, that Jaishankar is in Moscow today, Wang Yi is in Delhi today. So you can see the RIC connection here. The reason why I think RIC is very important is that, first of all, it would be a non-Western partnership, comprehensive strategic alliance, whatever you want to call, you can call it that. But the second thing is, I can see that a lot of you are making comments. Once I finish my presentation, then I'll be happy to read your comments and comment upon them, or answer any of your questions if there are. So if you look at the top 10 economies after making an adjustment for purchasing power parity. So once you make an adjustment for PPP, see, without PPP, the biggest economy in the world is the US. The second biggest is China, followed by Germany, Japan, then India, and then Great Britain in the sixth position. So in the top six position itself, you see 4 G7 countries and only 2 BRICS countries. But if you make an adjustment for purchasing power parity, you will see that the biggest economy in the world today is China at $40 trillion, followed by the US at $30 trillion, followed by India at $17 trillion, and then Russia at the $7 trillion. So today, if you do a PPP adjustment for Russia, then Russia is the 4th biggest economy in the world. It's bigger than Germany and Japan, based on the purchasing power parity. So if you look at the top 4 economies, then it is US and RIC. China, US, India, Russia. So in the top 4 economies today, RIC and the US. But if you also look at the power index, world power index, which are the most powerful countries in the world, militarily speaking, the rankings are US number 1, Russia number 2, China number 3, India number 4. And so even in the top 4 military powers, it is RIC and the US. G7 comes afterwards. So in that sense, because RIC are 134 and 234 when it comes to power and economy, it becomes a very powerful alliance if it can partner, if they can become an alliance. They're not allies. China and India are not allies. They're competitors. Very hostile till last week. Russia and China are not partners, or they don't have a strategic understanding. Whatever their understanding is informal. And the same with India and Russia. India doesn't have a formal partnership with Russia. In fact, India has had more strategic partnership with the US in the past few years than with Russia. So the question is, yes, on paper, RIC looks very powerful, but can it actually realize? Plus, you must remember the US is still India's biggest trading partner. Unless Donald Trump keeps those 50% tariffs for an extended period of time, 1 or 2 years, then the India US trade is going to take a big hit. And then there will be many countries that will overtake the total amount of trade between India and US. But until then, US is the biggest trading partner. Not only that, it is strategic partner too. So would India be willing to sacrifice this for whatever it can get from China and Russia? Russia now has a great hope. Putin, after meeting with Trump, he must be very optimistic about getting a good deal out of Ukraine. If the war stops, the first thing that he would want to do is end sanctions. So the number one goal for Putin after ending the war would be to move towards the West, not away from the West. He wants to bandwagon, not balance the West. He wants to go open trade with Germany, with all the Europeans. He wants to sell his gas. The pipeline is already there. He just needs to turn it on, and he will be back and prosperous. And within 5 years, ready to attack Ukraine again. So for Russia, I think if there is ceasefire, Russia's first priority will be to try to make amends with the West, not form an alliance with India and China against the West. And the same is true with China. China has been so careful. Xi Jinping not going to the BRICS summit was because exactly at that time, China was having intense negotiations with the US on trade, and the insider chatter is that Xi Jinping didn't really want to basically upset Putin unnecessarily by going to the BRICS summit. That's why he didn't go there. So the first dilemma is, do RIC, Russia, India, China, want to come together without going towards the West? But if they all say we are all going to practice strategic autonomy, then all of them head back towards the US. India will find it a bit difficult under Trump now, but as soon as Trump's presidency is over, then India can restore its comprehensive strategic partnership with the US. So the first dilemma is that are RIC themselves interested in forming an alliance which will be seen as hostile or anti-West to protect each other from the dictatorships of the Western power. If you remember, when I saw the meeting that was taking place in the White House, there were no Asian powers in that meeting at all. They were irrelevant to what White House decided yesterday. A major war that has been fought in this century, 3.5 years, and Asian powers have nothing to say. Neither Japan nor China nor India were at the White House table. Trump didn't feel the need to invite them in this so-called multipolar world. But if there's any major conflict in the Asian theater, America will be all over it, and so will European countries, like the case of Taiwan, like the case of Operation Sindoor. So that's the first dilemma. The second dilemma is, can BRICS really stand up to the West? And that is a big question. Like I said, there is a lot of seduction from the West. Who does China sell everything? After ASEAN, the second biggest market is Europe, and the third biggest market is the US. China's exports to the US are $650 billion, and its exports to Europe are also in that same range. China is not going to lose or want to have bad relations with a segment of the world to which it sells more than $1 trillion worth of goods, more than $1 trillion worth of trade. China's trade with Russia is $129 billion. Total is 240. China's exports were 129, total 240, and with India about 150. So it's about $400 billion with Russia and China. But with Europe and the US, it is nearly 4 times that. The same with Russia. I think Russia will be very tempted to get back into West, would like to be part of G8, which was abolished after the Georgia conflict. And the same with India. I think if you have a pro-India or not so pro-India also, a new president, I think India will definitely try to get back to its normal relations with the US because they've been developed over 25 years. Started with Clinton and so on. Every presidency, including the first term of Donald Trump, India's relationship with US has been nurtured. The third question, which is a strategic question for India, is India moving away from the US towards China and Russia, or is India being pushed away? Now, you may think that it is just semantics, but I don't think it is semantics. It's very important. If India is being pushed away, that means that at least to this US administration, India is strategically not as important as the previous administration thought it was. And therefore, India is being pushed away. And so India, because it is being pushed away from the West, is moving towards Russia and China to kind of get back at the US and try to find basically partners who can help it balance, because India doesn't want to be isolated if its relations with America continue to deteriorate. So that is the third question. Is India being pushed away, or is India moving away? If India is moving away, it shows that India has more autonomy. But if India is being pushed away, then it shows that India does not have autonomy. My fourth question, and this is also for India, is will Russia and China treat India as its equal in the RIC? India has made a big deal about wanting to be treated equally, which is not the case, even in the US. Okay. You didn't see American president come running to India after Modi got elected in 2024, but you could see how Modi wanted to rush to Washington, try to be the first person to meet with Donald Trump after he became president. They were coming, all these world leaders were coming to Washington to pay homage to Donald Trump. It didn't happen the other way around. So the relationship was not of equals. It was one power patronizing the other power to use it against a third power. But now, will Russia and China treat India as equals? I don't think that's going to happen with China. In principle, I think India and China should find a way to be friends because it is to their advantage. It is good for Asia if China and India are not aligned against each other. But will China just treat India as, okay, now that you have come back after dumping the US, we are so thrilled that you'll be with us, one? I'm not very sure. China has its own agenda. China wants to expand BRICS. India has tried to block it. China has heavy investments in CPEC. It is now extending CPEC from Pakistan to Afghanistan to Iran. It has huge investments in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, in Maldives, where it is competing with India. So will India continue to compete with China in the BRICS, or will it cooperate with China and become, not BRICS, sorry, the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI? Will India compete with BRI, or will India join BRI? That is the next question that I would like to ask. That is the question that I would be having in my mind. If I was with Wang Yi in India, that is the key question. Yes, he may not say it out loud, but that is the question. When do we ask India to join the Belt and Road Initiative? Already, India is planning to reduce the barriers that it had constructed for Chinese investments. So you could look forward to more Chinese investments. And will they come outside the Belt and Road Initiative, or will it be part of the Belt and Road Initiative? So this is the next question to ask. And My last question for India is India's relations with China a better, India having close relations with China and upsetting the US, is that a better situation for India strategically than India having good relations with the US and upsetting China as it was last year? That is the strategic dilemma. The fifth strategic dilemma is India having good relations with China and not so good relations with the US better for India, or India having good relations with the US, not so good relations with China? I think in the long run, India having good relations with China is a much better proposition than India having good relations with the United States, because the direction in which the US is going is not a happy direction. The US is becoming xenophobic, it is becoming selectively isolationist, it's become very aggressive, it is not respecting international law. I mean, now, while the bilateral between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin is being planned, they're having trouble finding countries where Putin can go without getting arrested. But he could come to the US. I mean, criminals can come to the US frequently. Netanyahu comes here all the time. He's wanted. He can't go to Europe now. So the US is not even respecting international law anymore, does not respect international law, bullies international institutions, bullies other countries, etc. So in the short run, yes, as long as Donald Trump is president, Xi Jinping is a much better dictator to be friendly with than Donald Trump. But India needs to actually do some scenario building and see what happens to the United States after Donald Trump in 2020. The next elections are going to be in 2029. And so, what will happen in the 2029 elections and then going forward, or 2028 elections going forward, what will happen? So, those are the 5 dilemmas that I think are going to be triggered as a result of India's now leaning towards China and Russia and leaning away from the United States. And I can tell you that the US, India will not be able to have good relations with Europe while having bad relations with the US. Eventually, the Europeans will stand with the US. They will try to have strategic autonomy, but they cannot. So, those are the points that I wanted to share. And so now I'll be happy to see if there are interesting questions and then I will answer them. Patel Rotwig, you were the first to come. Good morning to you, Patel. Namaskar, Dr. Khan Sahib. This is Milind. Hello, Milind. How are you doing? Aryan Singh, you take everything Modi says literally. No, I don't take everything that he says literally. He says he's non-biological. Apparently, he's not human. I don't take that seriously at all. Mayank Sharma, India and China resolve border issues soon and closely work in many areas in the future. Well, we will see. That's the plan, right? The border issue, India has an urgency to go close to China. China is sitting very happy. China was in a happy position last week with regards to the US. It's in a happy position now. So China has no urgency to become friendly with India. India is an opportunity for China to add to its collection of Belt and Road initiatives, etc. China is building client states, and it has an opportunity to make India a client state. But India is different. India wants to get closer to China because it has lots of problems with the US. India is on the rebound, China is not. And so for India, India will have to decide and say, okay, we can overlook these problems on the border. I don't think China is going to make any concessions on the border to India. Right now, given the position that China is, I think it will demand that India make concessions. We will see once the details. Unfortunately, this government is not very open and does not share information. So, but I'm sure that the information will leak out anyway if there is any compromise. But they will have to make compromises, otherwise they can't go forward. Okay, I will try to do that. Volume should be high. Thank you, Bilal. Giridhar Pandey, the moment India stands, I see Trump wiped out. I don't know what that means. Why is India sitting? Why is India sitting? And I don't know what you mean. If you think India becomes a major power, India is a $4 trillion economy. The US is a $30 trillion economy. India is expected to catch up by 2075, but that is just Goldman Sachs prediction. But we don't know what's going to happen in the next 50 years. And if India stands up in 50 years, Donald Trump will probably be long dead and gone. So I don't know what that really means. I don't know. समीर, हेलो समीर, हाउ आर यू सर? गुड मॉर्निंग सर। क्या आपका लगता है मोदी और योगी जैसे लोग they are trying their best, Samir, they are trying their best, definitely. I had an interesting meeting a few days ago with somebody who is a consultant who's advising Adityanath Yogi to bring in foreign investments into Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh is one of the poorest states in India. In fact, there are, like I showed a few days ago, there are about 4 states in India which are poorer than Pakistan, and UP is one of them. And because UP's population is so high, it really brings India down. So for example, Telangana is as developed as Ukraine, whereas UP is like Afghanistan. It is worse than Pakistan in developmental levels. So this guy was trying to advise Adityanath Yogi to focus on, basically told him, drop all this Hindu Muslim stuff, Mandir Masjid thing that you do, and focus on development, creating jobs, bringing foreign investments. There are a lot of potential in UP. Manpower, I mean, weak labor, yeah. Look at when I went to Hyderabad a few months ago, all the labor class were from Bihar. And so you can invest them. Why are you going away to so far away to do just manual labor? If there are investments in UP and other places in the region, there can be good jobs, better lives. So he was telling me that he's been working with Adityanath Yogi for a while and he has seen no progress of him moving away. I mean, they think that after 1,000 years, they've got a chance to make India a Hindu Rashtra. So they want to pursue that. That I think is more important to them. That's why they're undermining Nehru, undermining Gandhi, and projecting Savarkar. Look at the speech that Prime Minister Modi gave on Independence Day, praising RSS. What a shame. RSS played no role in India's independence struggle. I know they will rewrite history or make some stupid Bollywood film which everyone will assume is the truth. I'm sure they're soon going to make a movie in which India got independence only because of RSS. And Gandhi and Nehru and Maulana had nothing to do. And then most of the Indian people are going to believe that. But in reality, RSS did not play any role in the Indian independence movement. And on Independence Day from Lal Qila, Modi was praising the contributions of RSS. So yeah, those are not secular intentions or tendencies. Hormone Quest, how are you? The way Trump respects Russian and Chinese leaders, why don't you accept that there is at least triple polarity? I don't know. I mean, we could argue that there is a bipolar system, but go back and look at the Russia, Soviet Union, and US geopolitical competition. That was a bipolar moment. And look at the kind of war that you're seeing in West Bank and Gaza would not have happened if the Soviet Union was there. So China is not playing. China is a bigger economy than Soviet Union ever was, but China is geopolitically not confronting or challenging the US or the West the way the Soviet Union did. And Russia, I mean, Russia is struggling to beat a country, Ukraine, whose GDP per capita is $5,000 compared to, say, Germany, which is 5,500. The West has not sent troops, has not sent their best weapons. No offensive weapons have been sent by the US. And they just keep giving some defensive weapons. And Ukraine is fighting on against Russia. Russia is just a $2 trillion economy. Yes, when you adjust for purchasing power, it becomes $7 trillion and becomes a big economy. But still, it is $7 trillion. Anurag, your second question is the question that everybody should be talking about in India. Can India develop Atmanirbhar? No. This morning, somebody came and said, oh, India has just allocated $7.5 billion to build its own air force. Yeah, but where are the engines coming from? Are they buying from the US? Then it is not Atmanirbhar, right? Development is many things to it. So I teach a class on politics of development. In fact, I'm teaching it this semester. That is semester which starts next week. So we define development in both political and economic terms. In political terms, we talk about development in terms of human rights, democracy, people giving all individuals having the freedom to practice their religion, practice their lives, their conscience, etc. No pressure from the government, no fear from the government, etc. So freedom is an important measure of political development. Besides institutions like independent judiciary, freedom of press, look at India's rank on freedom of press. It is 150 or something. That means you're politically not fully developed. If you're judicial, look at the election commission of India. It's become a joke. If the election commission can't be an independent institution standing up to the government, look at Jerome Powell, the Fed, the leader of the American Federal Reserve Bank. He's not succumbing to Donald Trump at all. He's standing up to Donald Trump. Now that is a sign of political development. So you should have all your institutions standing up free. Then you're politically developed. Economically developed, the indications are very clear. Literacy levels, healthcare. The best one is Human Development Index, HDI. And India is ranked 130 along with Bangladesh. There are 129 countries which are more economically and socially developed than India. So how can you say, yes, you have the fastest growing GDP, but like I said, it doesn't make, because that number is there, Modi's government uses it to tell you. Let me give you an example. India is a $4 trillion economy. Let us say it grows with 6.5. Let's say it grows with 7. If it grows with 7%, that's not going to happen, but let's say if it grows with 7%, fastest growing economy, at $4 trillion, it will add how much? $280 billion to its total GDP. So India will go from 4 to 4.28. And if you look at the US at $30 trillion, even if it grows by only 2%, it'll add $600 billion. So the US will go from 30 to 30.6. Yeah, you can say you are the fastest growing, but in terms of percentage, but in terms of sheer volume, the US will be the fastest growing economy. That's why in the past 5 years, US has added 2 Indias to its GDP. In 2021, the US was $21 trillion. Now it is $30 trillion. It has added $9 trillion in the last 5 to 6 years after COVID. Planet Earth. Of course, India will survive the sanctions. It should just get hurt. I told you before that the sanctions, if they remain in place, they will reduce India's growth rate by 0.6%. So India could go from 6.5 to either 6.2 or 5.9%. That's it. It's not going to die. It's not devastating. But there's an article in the New York Times today which talked about how dangerous those sanctions can be for the Indian economy. I don't know, Ashwant Kumar. Those things don't impress me. People try to think that, oh, we are selling $100 million of BrahMos to Philippines is something great. I don't know. That's nothing. India is going and buying $9 billion worth of drones from the US. Is buying $8 billion worth of S-400s from Russia and so on. Those are big things. And BrahMos is not exactly an Indian thing. People keep pretending as if it's half Indian and half Russian. The technology came from Russia. The manufacturing is Indian. So the Moss in the BrahMos, the Moss is the name of the Russian company from where the technology came. Vishal Chaurasia, hello sir to you too. Good morning. Soul of India. Oh, okay. So I need to just ban somebody. Do you think Russia wants to reduce its post-war dependency on China? That's a good question, Kunal. That's a good question for Putin. The movement towards the West, trying to sell energy back to Europe rather than just to India and China, would be diversification for Russia and reduction in dependence on China. Scott Bessent today said something very interesting. He said that China was always buying Russian oil even before the war. It was 11% of all Russian oil was going to China, and now it's about 16%. Sorry, 16% of Chinese oil now comes from Russia. Before that, it was only 11. So China has just bought 5% more oil from Russia. China is very diversified, unlike India, which went from 2% to 40% of its energy now comes from Russia. Russia is not worried so much about dependency on India. We will see what India does. There's already reports that India has reduced buying Russian oil from 1.8 million barrels a day to just 400,000, so less than 25%. So we will see what happens. If India stops buying Russian economy, will be in little trouble. So Putin will want to reach out to Mathur has a very interesting point. Has he received a triple talaq from USA, China, and Russia? No, but I think he has received two talaqs from the US. Now it's hanging on one. Great conqueror. Okay. Shiv Karan Singh, why whole time India, India? I don't know. If you come and watch India shows, do you watch the ones I do on Russia and China? The last four shows, they're mostly on Alaska and Ukraine. And India is fun. I'm from India. That's why I talk about India. And I want to have an impact on India. That's why I'm on all the shows in India. That's my personal goal. And you are here. That tells me that it's working. Yeah, I agree with you, Mathur. People are not being very critical. Modi is now, after trying to sabotage SCO twice, is now going back for SCO Summit to China. You know, Kosar Bakht, yeah, that's the conclusion I wanted you to reach. India is not exercising its strategic autonomy by moving towards China. It will have to accept make a lot of concessions to China with regards to other things. So we'll see what happens going forward. It's not a done deal, and Anurag Parikh, yeah, in a way, the US is afraid because in all simulations, China has defeated the US in wars because the US can't bring its entire 100% army to fight China. It's like Russia attacking Ukraine. You have to have three times the force. So if US wants to attack China, it will have to bring three times the force that China has. And now China has the world's biggest navy. And I think it's only in the Air Force that the US is numerically more than China. But otherwise, China's, and unlike India, China doesn't buy its own technology, weapons, it makes them. See, the real power is one who makes weapons and fights with them, not one who buys weapons and fights with them. Because if you are dependent on someone else to buy weapons, then if the war goes long, you're finished. I don't know what you mean, one post value. India is a big friend of Taliban right now, more than in the US. China, Vivek Puri has a strange question, but nevertheless, I think Pakistan is also practicing its own strategic autonomy. Right now, Pakistan's foreign policy looks much better than India's. It has good relations with all powers. It has good relations with China, very good relations. China stood up with it during Operation Sindhu. No country came to India's support. And then now the US is like reaching out to Pakistan and is rapidly improving relations. And if you remember, it is Russia that invited Pakistan to become a member of BRICS. And there have been overtures from Russia towards Pakistan. You should Google that and you will be very surprised. So I will right now rate India-Russia relations better than Pakistan-Russia. But Pakistan-China, Pakistan-US relations are better than India-China, India-US relations. All right, it's getting very late, so I will take one or two more questions. Hassan Siddiq, Professor Khan, unfortunately to hear crap from folks in India for speaking his mind. I know. Chris Moses, how are you? Nice to see you. Chris is a member of Khanversations. I love it when members come. What if India became client state of China? India might have to do that. Look at the huge dependence. Vivek Puri, I don't know what you mean by 155, but I think that is the total amount of trade that India does with China and Hong Kong combined. I don't know what he's laughing about. Total, people undercount China's trade and to say that the US is the biggest trading partner by saying it's 131 billion, but actually India's trade with China is 127 and India's trade with Hong Kong is about 28 billion. So India has a deficit of $13 billion with Hong Kong, and it has a deficit of literally $99 billion. So with both the China, Hong Kong, India has 112. So India's total exports to these countries are about $20 billion. And India's imports are in much more in excess of that. What is strange? Some people are like very strange. I'm from India and I'm an American citizen. What's so confusing about that? Especially for Vishwa Gurus, it should not be too much on their IQ levels to understand that. Oh, wow. Thank you very much, Devendra Chauhan. Yes, I do. Uh, this government doesn't like me, obviously, for whatever. It's very clear that my Muslim identity makes them angry about me. And so you can see from the comments that I've deleted just now and otherwise. But yeah, I'm always open to giving advice. I give it to the US government all the time. I've given advice to the British government. I've worked closely with the German government. Whenever foreign governments have consulted me, in fact, in 2008, the Indian Defense ITSA had also invited me, and I went there and spoke. And when I was in India and Delhi, I spoke at many think tanks. So I give my advice freely. Ashwant Kumar, yes, China has just now realized that it can handle the US on its own. If India wants to tag along, that is great. But India will have to make concessions to China, not the other way around. So if India wants to make concessions to a foreign power, why not to the US? Oh, that's a good question from Amit Malekar. Amit, that's a good question. I'm going to recommend that to my students to write papers on it, undergraduate. If India-China relations improve, will China put pressure on Pakistan to behave itself with India? And so leading to improvement of India-Pakistan relations. That's a good question. And right now, I have some ideas in my head, but I don't think I can give you a proper answer because the things that China can control in Pakistan are not the only reasons why India is upset. India uses Pakistan and Bangladesh as a surrogate So when Modi wants to say nasty things about Muslims these days, he doesn't say that about Indian Muslims directly. He will say that about Pakistanis or Bangladeshis. So the moment Modi starts saying bad things about Pakistanis, he becomes very popular with his Hindutva supporters, and that upsets the Pakistanis. So will Modi stop using the Hindu Muslim card? Because both Pakistan and Bangladesh are Chinese assets. Because China cannot put pressure on Bangladesh and Pakistan to have better relations with India unless you change the way Indians talk about those two countries. So that is the question. Very good question, Amit. Per Swami, I don't know what you said, but anything that is produced is part of the GDP. If I teach you mathematics for 1 hour and you give me 5 rupees or 50 rupees or $10 or $100, that goes into GDP too. I was in UP. I was in UP. If you go to my channel, which is now banned in India, if you have VPN, go take a look at it, and you can see all the lectures I gave in Delhi. Well, I went to Delhi. I've been to UP before. I've been to Agra and Lucknow. I went to IIM Lucknow and I won a debate there many, many years ago. But okay, I will come to UP and I want to see how UP is. I have to go. I might be there in January actually, in some parts of UP. I have never been to Aligarh Muslim University. I have received 2 awards from Aligarh Muslim University, lifetime service awards to scholarship and to research. And they are somewhere here in the room. And so I have to go to Aligarh also. I've never been there. So yes, I will come to UP and I'll definitely do a show about UP. Uh, okay. All right, guys, it's quite late now. I have to go to sleep. Yes, Anurag 20. Kamlesh Prasad. Professor that focus on economics so very much and so very much on. I don't know, your sentence is a bit confusing, Prasad. Okay, Lakshmi Iyer, welcome. How are you? So, Lakshmi Iyer, India has not changed its position of one China policy. So, India does not recognize Taiwan as a country still. So, India has the same policy towards Taiwan that it had previously. So, there is no basic change. And now, of course, India is not going to make any such decisions. Uh, but it is quite possible that India has allowed the relations with Taiwan to improve. There are a lot of investments from Taiwan. Foxconn is a Taiwanese company. So I don't think India is going to recognize Taiwan. I mean, that'll be over. That's finished between India and China if India recognizes Taiwan as an independent country. Even the US doesn't. So it is not a member of the UN, for example. In fact, last month, the Taiwanese president wanted to go to uh, Latin America. So they fly into Los Angeles here in the US and then they go to Brazil and Argentina. So the Taiwanese leaders have in the past used it as an excuse to come to America. So they come to America saying, oh, we are going to Brazil, we are going to Argentina or somewhere like that. And this time, Trump didn't allow that. Didn't allow. He says, you can come here as a private citizen. You can simply change your flights and travel, continue like any other person. But there will be no recognition officially. No meeting by any American official was made clear. So the Taiwanese president, whatever, canceled the trip. Uh, Yeah, you're right. Biology first. It's the vote bank politics. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for watching Conversations. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your socio-political network. Somebody just told me that they shared it with their WhatsApp followers. Thank you very much. I hope they all become members. Bye.